Hello and welcome to Inside and Out with Patricia Stark. I am Patricia Stark, joined by my co-pilot, as always, Lynn Cimetti. Hello, Lynn.
Hello, Patricia. How's everybody today?
It is an absolutely beautiful day up here at WRCR. I was taking pictures outside before I came in because of the way that the WRCR sign was up against the blue and cloud backdrop. It looked absolutely gorgeous. And what today is, I think, is a good day to think about writing a book. Get inspired, sit under a tree. I sound like I'm joking, but I'm actually not. I really believe, and our guest that we have today also believes, that everyone has a book in them. And as you know, our show talks all about communications, inside and out, how we speak to ourselves, how we speak to the world. And one way to tell your story and to communicate to the world is to do that through writing a book. And I know a lot of my friends, a lot of my clients, everyone seems to have this dream of fantasizing about having a book that they could someday write. It always seems to be someday, that thing that's far in the future and maybe something I can do when I retire or when I have time. It's always, later on. It's never something that is really tangible right now. Well, our guest today is going to show you how that is tangible for you right now. And think of it this way. Every single person in this entire world has a different fingerprint. No one's fingerprint in this entire world of billions and billions of people, no one has the same fingerprint. This fascinates me. This has fascinated me since I was a child. That's just overwhelming to me that we can really be that unique. And we are. And that means we all have a unique story. We have a unique viewpoint. We have a unique background, all of these things. So when you say, well, who am I? Why me? For that very reason. Because you have something that nobody else has. No matter who you are, no matter who you think you are or what you have to say, you absolutely do have either something that you overcame in your life or a unique story that happened in your life, or maybe you're an expert that has something to offer other people that they could benefit by, something of value that could help their lives. So if you've ever thought about writing a book, I hope that you will listen today. Our guest is the writing guru, Christine Baker, and she has all the secrets that you need to know to get that book out of your head and onto the paper. And I will tell you that she is currently my book coach. I have had this idea for a book in my head for quite some time, and because of her, I am finally making it a concrete reality.
Well, I think actually I would believe that a lot of people don't realize that you can have a coach to write a book. And for those people who I think might be thinking, yes, I'd love to write a book. I know I have a book. But how would I get started? That's what I think is so unique about this, is here is somebody who can actually help you do that, actually put your dream on paper.
Right. I mean, she can help you do just a brain dump just to get it out of your head. She's so inspiring. She sends me little inspirational emails, and one that she sent me recently that really helped me one day was, a book inside your head can help no one.
Oh, that's great.
And I loved that because it's so true. And she's an amazing writer herself. She's a communications specialist. She is the author of Why She Plays, The World of Women's Basketball. And she regularly lectures on subjects of women's sports participation. She has hundreds of bylined articles to her name. She was a finalist, get this, for the Sundance Screenwriters Institute in 2011 for her first feature film script based on the life of Emily Dickinson.
Oh, cool.
She received a Master of Arts in Liberal Studies from Wesleyan University, and her thesis project was awarded the university's prestigious Rule Water Prize. She is the president of a company called CB Creative, which is an integrated communications consulting firm in Clinton, Connecticut. And if you want to know more about it, her website is cbcreativeinc.com. And if you're interested in the sports women's arena, her book for that was whysheplays.com. But she's just a really not only inspiring person, but she's very methodical. She talks about how to keep you to task and how to set up little things that you can do every day that make this digestible. It doesn't have to seem so overwhelming. It's little things that we can do to get that book out of you and on paper and out there to either help the world, inspire the world, entertain the world, educate, whatever it may be. Everybody's got this in them, and she can help you uncover that. And Christine, I believe you're on the phone. Are you there?
I'm here.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
So do you really believe, Christine, that everybody does have a book in them?
I do. I believe that every single person has a truly unique voice and a unique story to tell, whether that be fiction, whether that be nonfiction, whether that be a children's book or a self-help book. I truly believe that every one of us sees the world in a very special and unique way, and because of that, each one of us has something very special to share should we want to do it in a book.
Now, so how do you help people? Because I see this as being very common. I've experienced myself. I speak to people about it every day because, as you know, I work with different experts. I work with different people from all different backgrounds. And people kind of have this dream, and it seems like this far-off thing in the distant future. Oh, maybe someday when I have the time. Maybe someday when I retire. Someday I'll get to this. How do you help people make that be in the now rather than someday that never ends up happening?
Sure. Well, I mean, first of all, it has to come from the person themselves to say, listen, this is something that I want to do. I just may not know how to do it. I think it's often helpful for especially a new writer to work with someone like myself who can help keep that person on track and say, okay, you know, you're not just accountable to yourself, but now you're accountable to me. Then I'm going to help you stay on track and do the things that you need to do to get that book out of your head on paper. And then the next step, obviously, is once it's on paper, is to sell it, is to get a publisher interested in it. So I work with writers in different genres to help coach them through the process, the first-time process, and make sure that at the end of it, they have not only their manuscript in hand, but they also have a book proposal and a plan of action to go after the right publishers to say, hey, this is my book and you should publish it.
Right, so that they can have all their ducks in a row and be taken seriously, I would assume. So what do you advise on trying to get started? I mean, how do people not get all hung up on, oh, what should I call it? How many chapters should I have? And not overthink it? How can they just get started to just start to get it out of their head and onto the computer or onto paper?
Yeah, I think the biggest mistake that first-time writers make is that they shut themselves down before they even get started by this sort of self-talk that says, I'm not a writer, I'm not a professional journalist, or I'm not a professional writer, and therefore I have something inherently lacking. And even though I have this great idea, I don't know how to make it happen. I'm not, I was never an English major in college or whatever the case may be. So I think part of it is to really take the first step in taking ownership of the fact that not only do you have an idea, it is a unique idea to you, and you have your own unique voice. So that's, to me, step one. The next step is to really just start writing. So many people get caught up in the format and the title and what chapters should go where, that they forget that writing a book is all about writing. So sometimes it's just about sitting down at the computer or sitting down at your desk with a notebook and just engaging yourself in the act of writing. Even for myself, and I'll use myself as an example, when I started writing my first book, I literally could not sit still at my computer for more than a minute without getting all fidgety and overthinking things. So I started with an egg timer. And every week I would up the minutes. So it started with like a minute. It moved up to 5 minutes. It moved up to 6 and 7 and 10. And after a year of consistently using the egg timer, I got to the point that I could sit down and focus on my writing for 1 to 2 hours at a time.
So don't try to start there, because I think that's what makes people get overwhelmed. They lock themselves into a room, and it becomes excruciating because they sit there for hours or an hour, and it's overwhelming in the beginning.
Right, and everybody has their own process. So what works for me in terms of my writing style may not work for you or for someone else. And it's important to realize that there is no right or wrong way to do it. the only thing that's important is that you sit down and you write. Some people, some best-selling writers, and Toni Morrison, for example, who is a Pulitzer Prize winner, began writing when she had 2 young boys. The only quiet time that she could get, and she worked a full-time job, by the way, was at like 4 o'clock in the morning. So from 4 to 5:30 in the morning, before her kids got up and her life got crazy, she began writing, and that's how she wrote her first book. That worked for her. Now, many, many years later, she's so used to that schedule that she still writes at that time of day.
Wow.
So, you know, for her, now for me, that would never work. I could never get myself up that early and focused. So for me, I have a different writing style that engages me later in the day or even late at night. So you kind of have to play around and figure out what's comfortable for you and realize that what's comfortable for you is what's most important, and nothing is right or wrong. You just have to find your own way.
And I like that you bring up the point that you just have to find a way to do it so that you are doing it. I'm kind of thinking of the way that some people work out. Like, they don't want to go to the gym for a whole hour. They don't have the time. So they'll park far away. They'll walk up the stairs. They'll do little increments throughout the day and fit it in, which actually does add up. So even if you can just write for 10 minutes here, 10 minutes over there, 15 minutes over there, that would add up to a substantial amount of time in any given day.
Absolutely. And what's important to realize is that writing is an art that takes practice. If you look at a professional athlete and you marvel at how, let's say, a professional basketball player, how this one player never misses a foul shot. Well, that didn't come immediately. That player worked for years and years and hours a day honing that skill of shooting a free throw. So writing is no different. If you want to become a writer and you want to write a book, then you must write.
Just start writing. Just write.
It sounds really simple, but it's just start writing.
I like that. And you mentioned something earlier that we talk about a lot on this show when you said that it's that inner critic again of where people's minds will say, well, who am I? I'm not a writer. I don't have a writing background. Who am I to think that I should be writing a book, or I don't deserve this, or I haven't earned this, or whatever it may be? You're saying throw all of that out the window. If you think you have a story to tell and you think you have a good idea, just get it out and get it on paper or the computer.
Absolutely. Ernest Hemingway had hundreds and hundreds of rejection letters before his first book was published. There are thousands of writers that we all have studied in class, in English class, who have become very famous, very well-known writers, who for many years never believed that their book was going to get published. That all goes back to the simple idea that every single one of us, if you have the dream, and it all starts with that dream of, hey, I want deep inside, I want to be a published author. I want to write a book and leave something behind. If you have that initial thought or sort of chirp in the back of your mind, then it's up to you to make that dream a reality. And that dream doesn't come without hard work. You have to work at it. You have to practice it. And you have to learn as you go. And truthfully, that's how we should all be living life anyway, regardless of whether we want to write a book or not.
Yeah, and that really, yesterday, I'm sure that you heard in the news that James Gandolfini passed away at 51, out of the blue, out of nowhere. And, it really makes you feel like, gosh, maybe I shouldn't be putting things off. Maybe we don't know how much time we really have. And if I have this great book inside of me that I could leave behind, that could help generations of people in whatever way, shape, or form, it would be so sad to die with this book inside of me. I mean, those are kind of mind games that I play on myself to get that fire under my butt when I don't necessarily feel like getting it done.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just reading an article this morning online, and I think it was a UK publication, and it was the top 5 regrets that people have before they die. And it was written by a nurse who cares for elderly people. And, one of the top 5 regrets that people have in life is that they did not fulfill their dreams, that they lived their lives for work or for money or for all of these other things, and they had dreams and they didn't work to fulfill them. It's one of the top 5 human regrets. So if nothing else, somebody like a James Gandolfini or, other people that sort of pass through our worlds or our lives should be a reminder that if you have a dream to do something, and right now we're talking about writing a book, then it's up to you to make that happen. No one is going to stand behind you and hand you the key to a successful, completed book. You have to do the work, if that's what you want, to make it a reality, and it can be a reality.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about the reasons for wanting to write a book. I mentioned a couple at the top of the show. Obviously, we're talking about dreams and having a story and feeling the need to get that out on paper, and that maybe it's just something that you leave behind as a monument of your life and your experiences, and it inspires someone or entertains someone or whatever it may be. But you had also mentioned self-help books and empowerment books and how-to books, which is what my book is about that you're helping me with. And I wanted to talk a little bit about, I've heard in the past that if you are someone who offers a service, or you are a coach, or you have some business or something that could benefit other people, that a book really can solidify someone as an expert. It's really better than a business card. It's something that can help you with your brand, or help promote your services and what you have to offer people. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely the case. When automatically when you write a book and that book is published, and I will specify not self-published, so where a publisher actually accepts your manuscript and says, we're going to take a chance on this and we're going to publish you, that automatically, it's like an immediate level of credibility that you just ratcheted up 4 or 5 levels. Prior to when I wrote my book, Why She Plays the World of Women's Basketball, the people in my world knew that I played basketball, I coached basketball, I knew a lot about the sport. The minute my book was published, I became an expert on the subject of women's basketball, and I started getting calls for interviews from people all over the country who were covering the women's Final Four or writing about Title IX. And so automatically you become an expert. And so, when you have a job that is, as you said, offering a service, or you're writing a self-help book, it absolutely 100% increases your level of credibility and immediately puts you in a category of being an expert who has something to say.
Yeah. Excellent. So tell us a little bit more about the process. And I know we only have about 10 minutes left, and I know that we could talk about this for hours, and I would love to talk to you on the air about this for hours. But just kind of run through what someone could expect once they start to get this out of their head and into the computer and on paper. Just give us an overview of the process to where they could become a published author.
Sure. Well, let's put it in step form. So step 1 is you have the idea. Step 2 is you start writing. So step 2 is a big step, but let's say you have finished your manuscript in step 2. Step 3 is to go through the manuscript again and edit it, have someone edit it for you, proofread it, make sure that it doesn't have typos, make sure that it's clean, it's consistent in terms of voice, grammar, all of that stuff. You have to pay attention to the details. So you have to have, your manuscript has to be error-free and grammatically correct. So you've done that in steps 2 and 3. Now step 4 is where the work of selling your manuscript begins. And I always recommend to people that in step 4 that they go to their local bookstore with a notebook, and they sit down for a couple of hours in the genre that they have written, and they research the publishers of books that are similar. So let's take basketball. If you've written a book on basketball, you go to the sports section of your local Barnes & Noble or your local hometown bookseller, and you spend some time looking at the publishers of books written about the sport of basketball. And you make note what those publishers' names are, when those books were published. You go online and you start searching for books that may be similar to yours. because one of the things that you have to do for a publisher is to explain to that publisher that, yes, there are 92 other books out there right now on the sport of basketball, but mine is different because you have to be able to differentiate your book from the others in the marketplace. So step 4 is all about doing the research. You have to know what's out there, when it was published, what the publisher's name was. Step 5.
Could I just stop you before step 5, Christine? Because I think that step can be a stumbling block for some people, because I think they're thinking, it goes back to that inner critic again of saying, well, why me? What is going to make mine any better or different or whatever it may be? And I want to just mention what we said at the top of the show about how everybody has their own individual fingerprint, and that you have to know and understand and believe that you are different and you are unique. And by doing the homework that you're talking about doing, it will help you to be able to show how and why you are unique.
Absolutely. And, once you get to the next step is to get to the proposal process, to write a book proposal. And that's where you really, truthfully, I think you spend more time and energy on the book proposal than you do on your actual manuscript. Because that's where you actually, it's like a business plan. For a new business, people create business plans all the time. A book proposal is very similar to a business plan. And that's the place, Patricia, where you really have to hone in on what is unique about my book. What is unique about my voice? What do I have to say in this book that is unlike what's already out there? And this takes a tremendous amount of time, a tremendous amount of effort and energy and thought.
But you help people with that, right? You can help people
Absolutely.
get through the weeds of all that and not be overwhelmed. And that's why I think it's so important for people to feel like you don't have to be in this alone. And I'm going to give out your website right now. It's cbcreativeinc.com. We're talking with Christine Baker, who is a writing guru, the person that will help you get your book out there, find out how to write it, publish it, you name it. And I'm giving you that right now because I think it's very important for people to know that there are people out there like you who help with this, because otherwise it can feel very overwhelming.
Yeah, and it's all about taking things step by step. Rome wasn't built in a day, is the saying. And, anything great that's accomplished, it just doesn't happen overnight. So a book process is very similar. If you look at the whole thing and you think about all the stuff you've got to do and all the details you have to figure out, it's completely overwhelming.
Yeah.
But if you take it step by step and you just work on one step, complete that step, move on to the next step, complete that step, however small that step has to be for you, no judgment involved, you will get there eventually.
Yes.
So someone like myself or a book coach can help you see the steps, take the steps, not get overwhelmed by the entirety of the process, and sort of be that cheerleader, that sort of trainer, that coach, that mentor, that person that sometimes just needs to be over your shoulder saying, stop overthinking things and just do this task for today.
Yes.
Sometimes that's all it is. It's
Yes.
just having someone else be in the weeds with you to say, it's okay that you're feeling overwhelmed. Let's just work on this one task this week and then move on to the next thing.
Yes. And did I let you get to step number 5? Because I kept interjecting things there. Let's just recap. What did you say step 5 was?
Yeah, step 5 is really to start the book proposal process.
That's right. Okay, good.
And what you can do, if you Google book proposal, you can find some samples online that you can use as a guide. They're free. You can download them. You may certainly have to customize the book proposal to your genre or what you've written. But the key really is to work on writing a business plan or a book proposal that will step by step inform a publisher exactly what your book is about, why they need to take the time, energy, effort, and money to publish it. And more specifically, book publishers in the proposal process are looking to see that you are savvy about marketing. We all know the stuff that's been going on the news that, book publishers are struggling. They're struggling because they don't have the money in many cases, to throw millions of dollars at marketing your book. And so what they need to know is that you are a savvy marketing person when it comes to your book, that you already have Facebook page, Twitter page, LinkedIn page, that you're already understanding that part of your job, your primary job as the author of a book, is to sell it.
So to know ways that you're planning on, how are you going to get the word out? How are you going to shout from the rooftops to the world about your book?
Exactly. And, you'll have to come up with a website. These are things that authors don't really think they have to worry about because they just assume the publisher will do it for them.
Yeah.
And that's the case.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to really think through, who is going to buy my book? Where can I get to those people? And you have to show in the book proposal process that you can, in fact, get to those people. Now, this is not a one-day thing or an overnight thing. This takes time, energy, and research to really think through who should be buying your book, what those people like to do. Do they like to, if you've written a book about cooking, then you want to know where your audience likes to eat. What do they like to eat? Where do they go shopping? What kinds of products do they buy? Because all of that information helps to inform how you're going to market to them and how you're suggesting you're going to help and be a partner in the process of selling your own book with the publisher.
So then this is some stuff that people should be thinking about long term, but don't let this get you overwhelmed of not starting. I think that when you brought it up earlier about just get writing, get it out, know that this is something that you're going to have to focus on in the future with the website and with, getting the word out to the world, but don't let that stop you from getting that book out, because things tend to, don't you find, happen, like once you get the ball rolling, somehow the universe hears what you want and things start to kind of come your way as you just get moving.
Yeah, that's why step one isn't write the proposal.
Right.
Step one is write the book.
Right.
Because once the book is done and you've spent blood, sweat, and tears on getting that book out, you're already in a much better position to say, I've come this far. There's no way I'm going to let this go at the book proposal process.
Right.
I want my book proposal to showcase my book so that it gets published. I've done all of this work. So that's why step one is right, because you cannot write a book proposal until you have your book in hand.
Right, and we only have about 3 minutes left, so I want to just head in one last direction here. So basically, writing the book, getting it on paper is going to give you that confidence that you need to go the distance. It's going to give you that motivation and that persistence that you need. And I liked how you mentioned earlier about Ernest Hemingway getting turned down, because I remember a great story also of this author who wrote his first book, and it kept getting turned down like 19, 20, 21 times. He threw it in the garbage. His wife fished it out and submitted it, and they bought it, and it was Carrie, and it was Stephen King. This man threw it in the garbage and gave up, and his wife submitted it that final time. Could you imagine all of the great stories and movies and things that would not have existed if they didn't make it, and she didn't fish it out of there? So let's just leave our listeners, Christine, and I know you're so good at this, as some of the tips and some of the things that you tell people on how they can be inspired, how they can stay motivated and be persistent.
Being inspired is all about you have something, a light inside of you that you want to share, that you want to get out there. We all need to recharge that light. We all need to do things that inspire us to get those creative juices flowing. For me, sometimes that's going to look at art. For some people, it's going to a movie or listening to a concert or even just putting on some great music on their iPod and sort of rocking out. You have to realize that in order for you to be inspired, you have to seek out sources of inspiration elsewhere. And there's nothing wrong with some days feeling like I got nothing in the tank and I need to find a way to recharge myself. So if you look at the book writing process as a drag or this like horrible job or this horrible routine, that's what's going to come out. But if you look at the process of writing a book as this joyful experience that you are sharing your voice with the world, and you need to find ways to keep yourself energized and engaged and motivated and inspired, then that's part of the work of writing your book too. It's not just about sitting in a room by yourself for hours on end. It's about engaging with the world around you, taking all of that information and putting it out in the form of a book. So it's really important to make sure that you keep yourself, your battery charged too. And if you don't do that, you're going to stall, and then you're going to start second-guessing yourself.
All right, well, that's great advice. We are out of time. Christine Baker, we can't thank you enough. Her website is cbcreativeinc.com. And if you're interested in the Why She Plays book, that's www.whysheplays.com. Again, cbcreativeinc.com. Christine Baker, president and writing guru. We can't thank you enough. Great, great tips, and we hope that you'll join us again in the future for another show.
Thanks so much, Patricia. I had a great time, and I appreciate you having me on.
And I will meet my deadline this week on my writing as well, I promise.
All right, sounds good.
All right, have a great day. Thanks again.
All right, bye-bye.
And that wraps it up for this edition of Inside and Out with Patricia Stark and my co-pilot, Lynn Cimetti, who didn't get to say too much today. Lynn,
That's okay. It was good.
You'll talk more next week.
Good listening now.
Have a great day.
Stuff.
Make it a great day, everybody, and start writing.